brought to you by PorcupineCoffeeRoasting.com, private membership organization, specialty coffee roasted here in the Granite State every month. Use code NETAKE for 15% off your order. It's fantastic. So PorcupineCoffeeRoasting.com, code NETAKE. It's the New England Take. I'm your host, AJ Kierstead. NewEnglandTake.com is the Substack. Be sure to check that out. Get every episode in your inbox. YouTube, Facebooks, all the different socials. Everyone knows all that. But big thank you to WKXL for picking up the show every Saturday at 8:30 a.m. on the broadcast in Concord and Manchester. GraniteGrock.com for some reason still deals with my occasionally lefty nonsense, probably in a lot of their opinions. And Concord TV also picks up the program. AJ at NewEnglandTake.com to get more, to reach out to me directly. What did I get wrong? What terrible things did Dexter say that you disagree with in this episode? Shoot them my way and I'll forward the hate mail. Excited to be joined today by Dexter Tarbox. Welcome back.
Hi AJ, I'm glad to generate some hate mail for you.
It's always fun. It's always fun. So this one, I think for the most part, I think left and right is going to be okay with the majority of what we got to say today. Maybe not the angle we take on it, but the outcomes are probably going to be fairly well respected. So we're going to talk a bit about Janet Mills, governor of Maine. Wow, I'm totally lost. Dropping out of the Senate race against Graham Platner. Much to say about all of that. I've been covering that race for months now. We're going to talk about Gordon Darby being told no from the courts that they can't force New Hampshire to have inspections. And oh, by the way, 0 for 3, Trump still not assassinated. It's so dark. It's so dark and screwed up, Dexter. What is going on in the world?
Oh, it's not good. But at least in the case of Janet Mills, I think it was something we could probably predict.
Yeah, the whole premise of her campaign didn't make sense. Especially in Maine. Maine, unfortunately, the Democrats are the craziest lefty progressives imaginable. They seem to really have control over it. There are tons of solid conservative Republicans up over to the northeast of us here in the Granite State, but it seems to me overall Democrats are leaning very progressive over there and have this establishment candidate that is supported by the Democratic National Committee and getting the senatorial funds and everything like that to even jump in the race as she would be the oldest junior senator in the history of the United States of America as a middle of the road corrupt fake progressive. And I never understood the premise.
But let's not forget what the whole picture of the circumstances is. This is someone who is, as you say, the sitting governor of New Hampshire, opposed in her. I'm doing it now. Did it now. As well. and may God forbid what AJ and I both accidentally just said from ever happening.
Terrifying.
Excuse me. The sitting governor of Maine, who is opposed by a political neophyte with no background, save for his SS Totenkopf tattoo on his chest and his Reddit posts, which are homophobic and racist, and a number of other negative epithets could be applied to his previous conduct. And yet this man is beating the sitting governor.
Yeah.
That tells you something about the politics of Maine.
The politics of Maine and what a terrible candidate she is. The Maine Wire obviously is extremely partisan when it comes to this race. There's no way around it. I love their coverage of what's going on with the Maine Senate race and all their other coverage. But the blatant corruption of the Mills administration, I think, is really seeped into the mainstream now, where people are realizing how bad it is. There is no grassroots support for Janet Mills. It's the Democratic establishment and people that just assume, oh, she's running for governor, right? She's Democrat. But all the shady business deals, the Chinese weed mafia up there that is now finally getting national attention. she did not get, I mean, in theory, she probably could have got some momentum if she was able to have her Minnesota moment. Now, hopefully without the protesters being shot dead in the street, but hopefully if she had something like that where she was really able to step up and go beyond just a shouting at Trump at a lunch, she might have been able to go a little further with it, but she never had that moment. There was never that one thing that really pushed off her Senate campaign to be successful. It was entirely based on, I've been the governor here forever, you can trust me, I got national support, and that she stood up to Trump, which was just her yelling at him once. ICE never showed up there in big numbers, and there's nothing there.
I think maybe you've caught on something there too, because you're right. You would think with, again, her office, her national support, her little scuffle with Trump in the White House, which did get her a lot of press, would put some wind in her sails. But they just didn't seem to do that. Again, that's why I say maybe you're right about what she failed to have here. Perhaps then it's not her fault. Was she didn't have a moment, where she could really confront the administration in a way that would make her popular, in a way that someone who is an obvious lunatic like Graham Platner is somehow is able to do. Again, even with no experience.
Yeah, totally. And no, like, he's got a lot of the DSA types jumping up behind him, but I mean, I don't really have a whole lot else to say about Mills on her own, because I feel like it's really down in the weeds in corruption at the state level. I don't know why. I think that it really goes to show the failed direction that I think the Democratic Party at the national level is going to be focusing on here going into November with the midterms. They are lost at sea. They still have these strong voices that are pushing for these Mills-type characters, the Chuck Grassley's and stuff, these people that are just well known for being what they are and not really pushing the progressive movement as so many in the Democratic Party wants to see. And the progressive just have not, because a lot of them are crazy in my opinion. They get so many bad headlines. They're a golden ticket for many Republicans because of how crazy they come across, that the party is still divided. Like, they still don't know where to go. I'm not saying the Republicans have their act together by any stretch of the imagination, but the National Democratic Party is just lost at sea still, which is shocking considering all the ammo that Trump has given them over the last several months.
But you've got to remember that Mills is dropping out of the race after some really disastrous polling numbers for her. I think she was north of 40% beneath Platner. What does it say then about the Democratic electorate in Maine that they are choosing the bigger kook? You know, because you said that they tend to have a favorability towards the Mills type Democrats. What I'm seeing is a favorability towards the Mandami type of Democrat in their preference for Platner.
Yeah, it'll be something to
Which
see.
is
It'll
worse.
be real. Yeah, and Mamdani is out there as Platner is. And let me just pull up this tweet from Ross Conley from Americans for Prosperity. He's the regional director. He wrote, the 2026 nominee for U.S. Senate from Maine. Here's some things Graham Platner supports. Medicare for all, universal health care, which will create rationing of health care in bankrupt America, abolish ICE, destroy American energy independence, put more reliance on China to provide quote-unquote green energy, ban investors from building homes, put more Americans in government housing, lots of rent control on his platform, punish success and mimic disastrous California policies by instituting nationwide wealth taxes and restrictions of free speech. So and he's got a Nazi tattoo on his chest that he's covered up with some...
He sounds like a prototypical National Socialist based on that policy proposal. In fact, yeah.
It's blatant socialism. It's anti-American. It's obvious that these policies have not worked in Europe. These progressives are just desperate to push the narrative that the European leftists out there have had success when they've been falling behind and fighting tooth and nail to survive. Keir Starmer over in England is not some Labour Corbynite. He is a milk toast. It would be the equivalent to the Janet Mills. Like when you look at what happened with Italy, where they now have a center-right person who they've tried to vilify as this evil fascist, which she isn't. Germans and French are kind of in the middle. They've been trying to push this huge, since I've been paying attention to politics at all. The American left has continued to say we need to be more European when they are so beyond European, socialistic, the ideal Cuban government, Leninist, all these sorts of things. It's bananas. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. It does not get mainstream support when it gets platformed. And as with any political movement, it's rife with corruption, so they never seem to get anywhere when they do get power.
You know, the Brits just had to send their sovereign here basically on an apology tour for Keir Starmer and his disastrous engagement in foreign policy. So, yeah, you see how well that plays out when it's embraced in these European states. That even their own heads of state have to come out and basically cheerlead for them. When all else fails.
They need us. Like they don't have a strong. It's not the good old days where they had the Navy that controlled the waters of the world. They don't have the army. They don't have the colonies across the world anymore to support them. European nations need the United States economy for its innovation and ability to make things happen in our military in order to keep the world safe. Their foreign policy over the last 20 years has been an utter failure. Mass migration, all these different things. Yeah, we had a big mass migration issue here in the United States over the last handful of years. Obama during some of him, but especially during the Biden years. But when you look at the mass migration issue that they had in Europe, it's mind-boggling.
And yet, people in Maine, people in other New England states, really outside of New Hampshire, seem to continually hearken to the example of these European failures as the template for how our foreign policy or our domestic policy, for that matter, ought to be conducted. I'll say I don't know if Graham Platner is even the best example of that, maybe outside of Germany. And yet still, there has got to be something happening in the politics of some of these New England states, which is drawing them so near to these absolute lunatics. No one is, or at least I'm certainly not, giving Janet Mills any credit for her abilities as a governor. But for her to fall so far behind this alternative in the choice for senator, again, seems to say something to me very dangerous almost about the electorate in Maine.
Yeah, I got to reach out to the Maine Policy Institute. I'd love to have Matt Gagnon on, who runs that. He has a morning show on GAN or whatever it is, a talk station out of Portland. Because I'm constantly getting asked by people about, like, how is it New Hampshire is New Hampshire and hasn't melted to the leftist movement that Maine, Massachusetts, and to definitely, it's more of a historical legacy thing when it comes to Vermont. I think Vermont's a little unique and crunchy that dates back much further decades than the last 10 to 20 years. I mean, I wonder how much of it's just the economics of the situation. There's a couple different things. On one side, Maine's economy was ravaged by manufacturing moving overseas over the last 30, 40 years. There's no way around it. You go up north, you go out west in the mountains, you see all the mills are gone. All the lumber industry's gone because of both environmentalists and the offshoring of industries. And for another side of the economics of things is when you provide government programs to subsidize things and cover people in their worst situations, it's extraordinarily hard to get rid of those programs, and people want to vote for the person that's the least likely to get rid of said programs. So is one of those funny things about talking to Andrew Valinsky. I keep having to harp on this. Is Maine has a program where if you can't afford your property taxes, the state government will put a lien on your property so you can continue to live there. And if you can't afford to pay it off when you die, guess what? The state owns that property and your family's SOL. And things that make sure that people feel like they have their head above water when they don't really, and they don't really have a way to understand the economics of it because they're in such a bad state financially and culturally and the way the state's economy runs. That has huge consequences, and it could lead to like a national, I shouldn't say national socialist, that was a joke, a socialist to stepping into that position.
In
because
this case?
in this case, it's just funny because that tattoo, he tried to write that off, but it stuck, man. But it leads to
be written
the
off. It is as plain as the nose on your face.
Exactly.
But I think you raise a good point, though, in saying that, because I do have this fear when I think about what's going on with the electorate in Maine, that perhaps with this working man persona that Platner is adopting, they expect to get sort of a Fetterman.
Yeah.
In the Senate. Someone who actually will cross the aisle, will be a working man's man, and will do what is right, period. Again, not to say that Fetterman is always right, but who will cross the aisle to do what he thinks right. Let's say it that way. I think if that's their expectation with Graham Platner, they're grossly misled. And it's my fear that they are.
I totally believe they are, and he's going to be pushed along. I mean, it's the whole reason why the squad kind of fizzled out to a certain extent, because you can only make it so far in DC being the crazy hashtag revolution, hashtag resist sort of people, because you can never get anything done. It's really hard to get donors and things of that nature. AOC basically has jumped ship from the squad, as leftist as she is in many ways, because that's not how you get anything done. It's not productive, and having a Graham Platner in there is gonna lead to Maine being even less represented. We should also maybe level set. So I feel like this entire debate, and I'm definitely partly to blame on this also, is Susan Collins is still running. Like, the chance of Susan Collins being unseated, this could be a tight race.
Win.
She's old, but there's something that I'm fortunate to run in some circles with some politically connected people, and with the nature of what I do, not in this show. The show doesn't. No one listens to this. I'm talking about outside of this. A lot of it comes down to constituent services. It's the people that you have on the ground doing the work that's not in D.C. that is huge for keeping you in office. And that's part of the reason why you have these people that are 500 years old, barely functioning down there. Susan Collins is still functioning. She's kind of quiet. You don't hear from her as much. She's a middle-of-the-road Republican, which kind of goes in her favor. She's a moderate Republican. She's not part of the MAGA movement. She spoke out against Trump a bunch of times. But if you have a strong constituent
One of my favorite
services,
things I'm seeing right now on TV are ads trying to portray Susan Collins as a MAGA Republican. I don't know if you've seen any of these.
No.
She keeps voting to fund Trump's wars, et cetera. Literally anyone who grew up in Maine or knows anything about Maine is very aware that Susan Collins is quite far from MAGA.
Yeah, by far. She's in the middle of the road. She'll vote along party lines because this is something I always harp on, is the sausage making of DC is what keeps things going. And if you're just going to be voting against your party constantly, you're not going to have a seat at the table for literally anything. It's, once again, going back, it's part of the failure of the squad as a movement, is because if you're constantly out there saying, screw my party, Nancy Pelosi's an evil human being, Nancy Pelosi's not going to give you anything. And the new leadership in place over the years since Nancy is exactly the same. You got to play ball sometimes, and you need to be able to deal with it when you go back home, that you had to play ball and explain to them and just accept the hate that you're going to get. Collins obviously has been able to work through that no problem. Angus King doesn't know what planet he's on, because he's so old. But it's hilarious. I shouldn't say it's hilarious. It's disturbing seeing that man try to talk nowadays, because he's not all there no more.
He is the sole
like.
occupant of his own planet.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to these connections and making things work. It's about the old school compromise to a certain level, and you can't. I mean, say what you will about our delegation here in New Hampshire, but Jean Shaheen, Maggie Goodlander, and Chris Pappas have awesome constituent services that will talk to anybody, are in the field constantly, and it's part of the reason why these Democrats are continuing to lead down here, in my opinion, is you go out there and you will run into their people. They're friendly. They try their everything to be helpful. They work hard to make connections and be a resource. And it's more than just what you're voting for in D.C. It comes into those sorts of things extensively.
There's one other thing, though, that I think separates Mills and Platner, and it's the same thing that I bring up when people talk to me about President Rubio. I love Marco Rubio as the Secretary of State, but there is such a thing as star power, and it does matter in elections. The fact of the matter is, Janet Mills doesn't have it, and Platner, unfortunately, does.
Oh, 100%. That's huge. Yeah, that's something very important to highlight for sure. I mean, Graham's out there talking to people. He's out there in front of crowds, hamming it up. He gets them going. He's on TV. He's constantly doing interviews with people. He's out there. Janet Mills, anytime she's out there, is like a wet rag, just a piece of cardboard up there, just saying the same things, getting shouted off stage. Yes, she gets shouted off stage. And she doesn't have any good retorts to anything. It's terrible if you want to be able to succeed. It's one of those things. If Collins was running today as a freshman with her personality, she'd have a hard fight right here against Platner. A lot of it's going to come down to she's been in office forever, and I hope that Mainers have not drank too much of the progressive Kool-Aid.
If Maine were like New Hampshire, they would keep Collins, which is why I suspect maybe she'll win. Because in New Hampshire, we like to keep what we know. I do hope the star power and the misleading messaging of this little rich boy as the country oyster farmer does not win people over by its falsehood. Because if he does beat her, it will be more because of his media presentation than it will be because of his policy. At least so I suspect.
Yeah, definitely. Because, I mean, ultimately, one individual progressive in D.C. getting added, who cares? It doesn't ultimately matter that much, fortunately. One of these people over in the Senate, whatever. If we have a lot of them all voted across the country all at once, that's a serious issue. That's a serious issue for the future of the country. It's a serious issue for our economy, and it can cause a lot of problems. It's kind of the concern I brought up when Mamdani got elected is if us on the right allow that branch of the Democratic movement to succeed and continue to go to other places around the country, it'll be catastrophic. This is not going to magically go away as an issue. That momentum will build. It's the whole nature of the MAGA movement. It was the buildup that Trump was able to get, and the people he was able to get to follow him. We can only hope the Democrats continue to be as chaotic as they have been.
Well, I ultimately returned to my longtime position, which I still hold, which is that the constitutional amendment, which changed the nature of the Senate election from from an election by the state legislatures to a direct election by the people, was an egregious mistake for which, or about which the founders are turning in their graves, and we ought to reverse if we ever have the chance, though I doubt we ever will.
Yeah, it probably never will, unfortunately, in so many different ways in our lovely country. How you feeling about the New Hampshire Senate race at this point?
Well, I have my candidate, and it's John Sununu, because I believe in electability. The
Yeah.
fact of the matter is, I voted for John Brown before, and we know both of their records in the Senate. And there's one who is better in the Senate, and there's one who is more electable in New Hampshire. And it happens to be both of those are John Sununu.
Oh, I agree. Unfortunately, the boring option is probably going to be the better option as a movement for us to get done. It's Chris Pappas is going to be hard to beat. I mean, I sincerely believe that he's kind of milk toast,
Oh,
generally
yeah.
speaking, when you look at his policies and everything. But just the
But that's good
movement,
here.
it's really good here. That's what you need. It's part of the reason why Sununu is going to be able to one up, hopefully,
Yeah.
some of that with his name power.
Oh, yeah. I think I said it earlier, but in New Hampshire, we like what we know. Why have the Shaheens been in power from time immemorial? And the same thing with the Sununus. We like that. Um, his brother could have been governor, like George Washington could have been
Yeah.
president, until the day he died, had he not decided to go focus on his family. So no, I think he speaks to what we like in New Hampshire. But again, so does Chris Pappas. We
Yeah.
know him. We've had him in office for many years, and it's really going to be a contention of two people who are facing each other almost with like arguments, but from different sides.
Yeah, and it's not.
And again, that's why in the
Sununu's.
primary I can't support anyone else.
Yeah, and Sununu's gonna get villainized as this ultra Republican who's gonna destroy America by supporting Trump. He literally is out there saying, I helped us get through 2008. So like, as a libertarian,
He has
my brain melts. But as a matter of getting things getting elected here, and that's that sort of messaging that's gonna work, unfortunately, for many.
he has been a senator. We know how he'll behave in the Senate. Will it be MAGA Republicanism? No, as much as maybe I even wish it would be. Um, will it be better than Scott Brown? Yes, absolutely. Again, these are two comparable Senate records. But also, we can compare it to Chris Pappas, and it's not going to be a radical record. I think he has all of the qualifications that are necessary to satisfy New Hampshire voters across the state. So you think about northern New Hampshire too, and Lake Street versus southern New Hampshire. I mean, this is a really wide gradient of political opinion that exists between those two places. And really only a Sununu has that ability to cover that full swath in a way that could beat well, an incumbent running for a new office. But
And I can't imagine that the name confusion is just going to be a beautiful thing to read the the exit polls to see. I think that every exit poller should say if they voted for Sununu, ask them, did you vote for the guy that was the governor? And just wait and see what they answer.
do you think we'll have the election result on election night?
It's gonna,
Actually,
yeah, probably not. This is gonna be a tight one. This is gonna be such a tight race, unfortunately, that it'd be great to get those answers, but it's gonna be really interesting to see. Like, I'm shocked Stephanie Shaheen's not doing better. We only got like a minute left here, but I'm just shocked that the name
I'm not
recognition didn't
shocked.
carry
She's
over
unlikable.
there. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm not shocked. Again, the name recognition. Yeah, New Hampshire. It should be coin of the realm. I don't know. I don't think she's very likable.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be the case. If she was out there, like Jean Shaheen she's good at interacting with people. She's not like a big personality or anything
Yes.
like that, but she's worked the state so well for so many years that people know her and respect her. And Stephanie doesn't have that. She's looking like a corporate shill, and that's not going to go over well. All right, we're out of time. Dexter Tarbox, contributor here. Thanks so much for joining me.
Hey, great talking to you.
All right, newenglandtake.com to get more from the show. That is a Substack. Please be sure to check that out. throw me a couple bucks if you feel like supporting the show and keeping it going, supporting the tech and everything I need on the back end. Thank you to WKXL for picking up the program every Saturday, 8:30 a.m. Next up over there is Facing the Future, brought to you by the Concord Coalition. Thank you to GraniteGrock.com, Concord TV, and be sure to email aj@newenglandtake.com with any of your opinions on the show, or if you want to be a guest on the program every week, half hour right here at newenglandtake.com. We'll talk to you soon.